So we are in now one of these moments with AI, which is a period where we are going to see not only breakthrough technology, but the breakthrough application of those technologies. That is as much going to be an incumbents game as a startups game this time around. You're going to be working nonstop if you're in one of these companies. Like, there is no chance that you should be focused on sort of anything other than just pure survival and execution.
Ready to go? Aaron, I am so excited for this. I'm like a big fanboy of your tweets. I go downstairs. People don't know this. It makes me sound really sad. I go downstairs for like my evening espresso, which is weird in its own self. And I like read your tweets from the day on AI. And I'm like, oh, this is a good one. So thank you for joining me.
Happy to provide your evening entertainment. So.
Now, I want to start with one of your tweets mentioned actually you're living through the transition, to cloud. And I just thought, you really had such a front row seat to that. Having the experience that you have in terms of living through that transition, how do you think about what it takes to be successful with this transition in this next wave of AI?
We are clearly in this window that is going to be relatively temporary. I don't know if it'll be 2 years. I don't know if it'll be 5 years. I don't know if it's already over. But basically, you have these windows every, more or less once a decade. There's nothing, kind of particularly specific about the decade part. But we had it in the PC boom. So that was basically the 80s. You had it in the web boom in the 90s. You had it in the mobile and cloud booms in the kind of mid 2000s and 2010s. And in each one of these moments, there's an architecture shift that happens in tech that creates really the only window of opportunity you have for new kind of platform scale, large franchise kind of companies to emerge, because you need a change in the technology industry for new insurgents to be able to enter, or else basically the incumbents will just naturally gobble up all of the market. So we are in now one of these moments with AI, which is a period where we are going to see not only breakthrough technology, but the breakthrough application of those technologies. That is as much going to be an incumbents game as a startups game this time around, because the incumbents have a lot of the data and a lot of the workflow. So it's even sort of more competitive, I think, than the prior periods of these windows. But you will have this moment of opportunity where startups will emerge that will be able to figure out a set of use cases or a way that they should deliver functionality on AI that an incumbent will not be paying attention to, will not maybe go after. And it's in these windows where you can build now very large companies. And so we're in one of these windows, and it's sort of, these are the only times when you really have that level of clear opportunity in front of you. And so now I was mostly just a call to, you're going to be working nonstop if you're in one of these companies. Like, there is no chance that you should be, focused on sort of anything other than just pure survival and execution as an organization.
Do you think new juggernaut companies will be created both in the foundation model layer and in the application layer, or just in the application layer with incumbents gobbling up the foundation model layer?
I would say that there will be some foundation model companies, but not nearly the magnitude of the application layer companies, and much of that is due to the trends we've already seen, which is, the moment you have people like Zuckerberg that are literally willing to spend billions and billions of dollars commoditizing the model layer, it becomes very hard to sort of figure out, well, how do you differentiate in that space enough where you won't kind of be taken out by one large training run from an OpenAI or a Google or a Zuck. There will be like niche or maybe industry specific sort of approaches you could take, or some very kind of specific domains you could go after. Like, I think there could be categories where maybe the big incumbents are more nervous about going after audio because there's obviously going to be lots of interesting conversations around copyright and whatnot. But I think for like the pure play horizontal LLMs, I think those will largely be subsumed by the big players, with maybe room for 1, 2, 3 independent companies at scale that are not in the hyperscalers, but there will not be room for 50 companies. That's just not going to be possible.
When you think about, say, like a box today, how do you think about leveraging LLMs? Is it a case of actually using 6 at the same time and switching between them for different use cases and purposes and being able to transition seamlessly between them? How do you think about that and the choice that companies have there?
So we are building an architecture that lets our customers do what you just said. So effectively switch between models that they want to use for different purposes. I think it's sort of less likely that we would be able to kind of switch on their behalf in some kind of completely abstracted way, because each model sort of, is just a little bit different in how verbose it is, or how succinct it is, or what kind of style does it sort of respond in. And so I don't think you're going to have complete commoditization of sort of the personality of the models or the sort of style and the response, to the point where then, if you're a user, any given response could come from Gemini versus GPT-4 versus, Claude. I think that's probably less practical. You're going to be more wired into a particular model for some use case as a user of software. What we did basically is as soon as sort of this wave started, let's say 18 months ago, we basically started working on an AI platform layer that connects the data in Box securely with any AI model, starting with OpenAI's models. Over time, we will be opening that up to other AI models as well. So if you're a customer and you say, okay, I really find GPT-4 is very good at legal answers, but Gemini is very good at pulling out metadata from documents. Those would be two different use cases you would have with AI within Box. And we would give you the ability to kind of interact with, multiple AI models to go do that on your content.
When I speak to large enterprises, they all say the same thing. They say, hey, I want to get the incredible benefits from some of these providers, but fuck, it's really sensitive data. I'm not willing to put that anywhere near any vulnerable openness. They don't want to put it in the cloud. It's like we're seeing this reversion back to on-prem in a fear of security issues.
Interestingly, I'm not necessarily seeing that. In fact, I'd probably say the opposite. For the first time ever, we're now talking to customers that have been cloud holdouts that are saying that previous to AI, they said, I just, I'm fine with this data being on-prem. I feel like it's safer inside of an on-prem environment. AI is kind of the final, I would say, maybe death knell to that particular approach. If your data is not in the cloud or in a cloud-ready form, I think it's going to be extremely hard for you to get the full value of AI on your information.
I had Sam on the show when he was in London, and he said that the biggest kind of rate limiting factor was actually just the rate of model improvement. When you look at it, how do you analyze the rate of model improvement?
We have our own internal benchmarking that we do. So we compare models using a set of business documents. The rate of improvement has been truly incredible just in the past 18 months. One critical metric for us is basically token window size, where we rely heavily on how much data can you give the model and can you get back from the model in a single sort of interaction or inference. When we started this whole exercise with just GPT 3.5 18 months ago, so the thing that kind of started the ChatGPT wave, the token context window was more or less, I think, 4,000 tokens. So you can kind of give it like a blog post to analyze. Just in the past week, at Google I/O, Sundar announced a 2 million token window model or version of Gemini. So think about that. That's about a 500x improvement in 18 months of how much data you can give the model or get back from the model. And there's just nothing in technology history that grows at 500x every 18 months. It's just never been happen. It's never been seen before. And that is the kind of pace of innovation that we're able to see in AI right now.
So does this completely discard like Moore's law? Because as you said, we've never seen that before, and it's completely atypical compared to previous progressions.
To be fair to maybe like a Moore's law, like religious, zealot, this is a sort of a different variable than what Moore's law is, which is about the density of your chip or the performance of your chip. So this is more about model algorithms and how we're actually utilizing these models. There's actually a different law, which is sort of the GPU performance. And I think there's a sort of a, Jensen almost kind of created a law around this. But we have seen faster than Moore's law improvement on GPU performance. So the good news is we get a little bit of a reset on, there's been a lot of talk on, hey, is Moore's law slowing down? And GPUs kind of are giving us that maybe next tailwind of compute performance improvement, which is this miracle that we now get to deal with. But I would say I'm seeing no signs of AI models slow down, anything plateau in terms of the innovation curves that we're seeing.
Going through your tweets, there was another cool kind of chapter / segment I really wanted to dig in on, which is like AI agents. Why do you believe the next big breakthrough in the world of AI is AI agents?
What's interesting is last year when, let's say 6 months or so after the emergence of ChatGPT, there was this mad rush for basically everybody sort of believing that the paradigm of software was you would just kind of chat with all of your applications. And so everybody launched these chat interfaces for software. And that was good because you sort of had to have some way to get started in this movement and to see what the use cases were. But I think if we're really honest about sort of the chat use case, chat is more of like a UX paradigm shift. So it takes what used to be a graphic user interface and turns it more into a command line. I'm going to talk to it. But like at the end of the day, you're kind of still accomplishing the same thing with software in a lot of cases. You can get to information faster, but if all we've done is move the user interface to a chat interface, that's sort of not taking advantage of, obviously, the full potential of AI. So I think last year we sort of saw the chat interface wave where that was the initial kind of instinct of software providers. And then somewhere around middle of last year, tail end of last year, this idea, or at least more established idea of AI agents has begun to emerge, which is instead of sort of talking to AI to get information back, what if we could talk to AI to have it do something for us and really kind of complete the underlying task that we're actually trying to accomplish, as opposed to just get information to do the task.
Can I ask a stupid question? Is that not what RPA is? Like, we have large RPA providers. I always thought that was what RPA was.
Everything I just said is exactly how you would have pitched RPA for the past decade. And everything I just said doesn't sort of negate the need for what RPA would be in the enterprise. The challenge with RPA is, RPA is relatively frail. It's often sort of just like looking at your computer screen and performing some kind of routine actions. Doesn't handle variability very well because there's again doesn't have the level of intelligence that you now have in AI models. So I think RPA actually gives you a little bit of an early preview of what becomes possible when you could apply more general intelligence, maybe not sort of full AGI, but like a general intelligent model to a large number of business tasks. So the big breakthrough is, what if we could go from a world where software is something that you or I use to get our jobs done faster, or it enables us to do our jobs, to where software is something that you or I use to basically farm out work to AI to go do. And it's kind of it's a sort of real shift of how we think about software and the role of information and intelligence in our organization. So the best examples that are emerging now are, I could have an AI that is my outbound sales rep, or I could have an AI that basically does full testing of my product as a quality assurance engineer, or I could have an AI that responds to all my customer support tickets. So when you think about now an organization that has, effectively AI agents that augment the labor or the people in the organization, they're not co-pilots. They're literally autopilots that are going out and doing work for you. That's a, pretty significant revolution in sort of just like, not only the software space, but literally how you'll run a business in the future.
How do you think we'll see org structures change as a result? Obviously I'm a content business and it changes content immensely. How do you think we'll see org structures change as a result? I
think org structures somehow seem to stand the test of time on all forms of disruption. So, there's actually there's some good books in like that go back, 80 years at this point, 70 years at this point, that basically, really like codified today's org structure, format. And it has survived the test of the internet, of remote work, of, large scale industrial change. So I think org structure stays the same. I think what happens is you now have the ability to sort of drop AI labor into any part of that org chart. And in fact, in many cases, augment, just whatever you would normally have had people go do. Now you have AI go and swap in for people where you need more support.
But I heard you on, the Bill Gurley show and the Brad show. You kind of spoke about kind of doing the work and not selling the tool, kind of similar to Sarah Tavel, who's kind of said exactly that. You sell the work and not the tool. And I thought, well, you wouldn't have outbound teams if you had an AI tool that
Yes.
was very efficient, and so your org structure would change immensely.
Yeah. Sorry. I mean, yes, at that level of specificity, you might have certain roles that have now turned into AI roles. Like, the classic example would be, let's say, customer support. My general view is that you'd have a layer of AI labor that handles the first, it's like the first line of defense on your inbound customer support. That will still eventually escalate to the human side, which, okay, I've got to take on the more complicated processes. Maybe I'm doing things that are a bit more proactive with customers that have, that have signs of issues. Workday might look somewhat similar. There's just now an extra layer of AI that has been added to parts of the org chart. And then similarly, if I have an outbound sales rep, they will generate leads for then the inbound sales rep that has to go and basically pursue these. So what we've done is really kind of just shift the type of work that team was probably doing previously in most cases.
But we can have 2 customer support reps, not 10, because we've taken away all the kind of annoying frontline stuff, the low-hanging fruit that was handled by AI, and then you've just got the complex for a fewer number, and we've lost the outbound team. So we've gone from like 20 to 2.
This is a question on then sort of total number of people in the organization. I think you have a couple interesting questions. So if you take a mature company, let's say Box, in this case, basically anywhere within Box, if we can make that particular function more productive. So if I can take a sales rep and have them sell 20% more, or if I could take a customer support rep and have them, handle 5 times more tickets because AI is helping, at least so far empirically, every time that we've done that, we will actually reinvest in that area of the business. Because there's simply just more work to be done than we've ever had people to be able to go and do. If I can ensure that an engineer at Box could develop 30 or 50% more code, we would actually reinvest that productivity gain back into engineering to build even more software. So you have sort of, some companies I think will choose to just reinvest those dollars in that efficiency. And even in the customer support case, if we can get rid of some percentage of those frontline customer support tickets, we're going to take that the time of those people and have them turn into customer success, where we're going to actually go and reach out to our customers more proactively when they have issues or when we think there's an opportunity to use the product more. So that's sort of one side of the equation. Then I think you have an interesting example, which is okay, take a company that starts from scratch. They've got 1 employee, it's the founder. What does that company sort of look like in the future? That actually might look like a different company. Now, I would actually argue that they will actually, if AI is sort of doing what it's supposed to do, I believe that company will actually hire more people over time on a like-for-like basis, because what they would be doing is that 1 or 2 person company would hire the AI outbound sales rep, software company. They'll actually get more leads faster than they would have as an alternative, kind of way they would run the business. They're going to have to now hire sales reps to handle those leads. And they will literally be scaling more effectively and probably faster as an organization. So there's a lot of belief that well, you might have these solo companies that become multi-billion-dollar companies with just 1 person or 3 people and a bunch of AI. I think that will be done just by virtue of everything happens in the world multiple times. But I think that'll be a relatively novel way to run their company. I think most companies would take the AI efficiency gains, and then you'll end up hiring the functions that eventually need to be serving all the new growth that you've just developed because of AI.
There's many points I want to touch on. In that one, do you think we're still in the experimental budget phase for enterprises? We mentioned there about how we can change functions and optimize them. Do you think we're still in the experimental budget phase, and how will the best and the worst enterprises engage and adopt with AI?
I think there's 2 types of spend happening. There's probably the bulk of the dollars that you see in the headlines, I would argue, are likely experiments where you'll have some kind of hit rate, success rate that happens. And then those experiments graduate into production spend. And I think we just don't have an accurate kind of pie graph yet of what's in the production category versus what's in the experiment category. But it would be probably too generic to say it's all experimental, and it's certainly not accurate that it's all production. And so the exact sort of split of those 2 things is sort of hard to diagnose at this point. I've just been on the road. We've done maybe about a dozen or so AI events throughout the U.S. In the past quarter. The vast majority of companies have a meaningful number of AI experiments happening with lots of different kind of areas of their business, lots of different applications. But the vast majority also have areas that are in production already. So unfortunately, it all would get lumped into the same kind of category of AI spend by the time the CFO, gets the AI bill. But we are seeing real production and lots of experimentation.
That's really interesting. Is it an AI line item, or is it actually a fintech line item, a HR line item? Is it segregated by the functional tool that it's in, or in an AI tool?
I mean, we're literally seeing both, just simply because the way that these products get priced are so varied. Sometimes it's included in your SaaS spend, and sometimes it's like, no, here's your consumption of your AI usage.
We mentioned there about kind of selling the work and not the tools, and actually how it changes in terms of providing that output. What does that do to business models? Because we're so predicated on seats. I'm a SaaS investor. What happens now, Aaron?
Your guess is as good as mine. So I think we've seen the good news is that everybody's experimenting with every version right now. So we will eventually see where it lands in 6 or 12 months. I've certainly had conversations both with customers and then startups also selling to customers on every variety. So do you price to what value are you delivering? How much would that workflow have cost you? Prior to AI? Oh, it's $100,000. Well, we'll charge you $50,000 for it. That one's tough to scale because everything's bespoke. So let's kind of throw away the value, the kind of bespoke value oriented approach, because that's never, except for maybe like a Palantir or something, it's very, very hard to kind of make that model work. So eventually you're gonna have some unit that we all agree with, that you can go off of. So is it sort of a consumption, model of what is your unit of volume? Is it customer support tickets? Is it leads that I generate? Is it emails that I write? We'll have to figure that out.
On the AI agent space, then, when we look forward, what do you think it looks like in 5 years' time?
I can sort of sufficiently say, hey, AI, generate leads for my business, or answer my support tickets, or review my contracts, or process my invoices. If I can do that, then realistically, you will have I think you'll have kind of category, winners in a large portion of sort of job functions that today exist, and there'll be AI versions of those functions. And this is again one of these windows where 10, 20, 30, 50 companies will get started that were like the window in the mid 2000s, where like all of today's SaaS companies basically emerged in like a 5-year period, essentially. And we'll have that for basically AI jobs, where you'll have the AI security engineer, the AI, customer support agent, the AI, marketer. And, lots of companies won't work just for the kind of typical reasons, but we will have a landscape of basically labor that you can get from AI. Then there'll be like really interesting kind of second derivative effects, which is, okay, how do you manage all those different, that like AI labor? Like right now, when you want to manage lots of software, you have, you implement Okta, or you implement a security tool. Well, this is kind of a crazy world where all of a sudden I have digital labor that is, from a variety of providers. Do I need some way to kind of organize them, make sure that they can interact well, have guardrails around what they can do? There's like you can almost imagine like a work day for AI. Like how do I actually organize what all this work is? How do I actually make sure that it's organized well, versus what the humans are doing? Also, lots of incredibly interesting kind of downstream questions in this world that we're only scratching the surface of.
You said we'll see this whole generation of like AI versions of each function. To what extent do you think we have that with new players in each of those functions versus Gong, Salesloft, Outreach, add AI, and have it as another product which is integrated into existing workflows and is an extension?
The cool thing is this. This will be an epic battle of existing incumbents with existing data workflow and customers that will add AI into their platform to deliver a set of services. That will work some percentage of the time. And it's almost like hard to know in advance which categories that works better or worse in. But just by default, that will work a meaningful portion of time. Like when Facebook needed to get into mobile, other than Instagram, they basically could get into every mobile category that they needed to when they chose to do that. And so only the categories that they didn't pay attention to did you sort of see these emerging, new players in the mobile space. Similarly in AI, I think there will be some categories where incumbents have the natural advantage, but then there will be either blind spots that those incumbents don't kind of go after, or there will be things so different from their existing business model in kind of classic innovator's dilemma fashion, that they just don't understand that they have to go after that particular problem. It looks like it's not like an actual threat, or it doesn't seem to be solving the same problem. And then all of a sudden overnight, you're like, oh, the business is now over because we were disrupted by the AI version of what we do. And, you know, if you're a customer support company, you might sort of think like, okay, my classic customer buys, you know, seats for every single every customer's, you know, rep that's in the business. And that's the business model they have. This AI agent thing looks too different from that business model. And all of a sudden, and then even what you build to manage the AI agents to do customer support will be different from what the kind of, you know, typical customer support software company would be building, that all of a sudden you get disrupted 3 years later and nobody needs customer support software. You know, that is sort of not going to happen exactly like that, but that would be the one disruptive angle that we could see with some of these incumbent categories.
It's funny when you said about the incumbent categories adding on those features and kind of having it as an extension with the distribution benefits that they have already. The one that everyone's shitting themselves about in startup world is, well, OpenAI will just do it. And yeah, fair enough. Like it's a warranted worry.
Well,
how do you?
Yeah, sorry.
And just how do you think about what, you know, Sam said on the show?
Yeah.
We will steamroll you.
So there were some great memes from that interview. I mean, honestly, everybody should thank Sam for the clarity and transparency of their model. And I think it's actually very good when basically, you know, the lead platform player tells you the types of things they're going to go after versus the ecosystem. Like, people should be paying close attention to that, and you know, really understanding what that advice means.
You know, when you look at their releases last week, you're looking at language learning tutors and going, fuck, did Duolingo have a business anymore? And does language learning actually have an independent category if OpenAI is able to provide such quality?
OpenAI is kind of telling us what they are going to become, which is ChatGPT is going to be this universal sort of assistant interaction, you know, interface, and all the, you know, subsequent tools to manage that and interact with different AIs that kind of come together there. And then they're going to have an API business that will be, you know, you can almost just, you know, very quickly, easily understand. It's going to be audio, video, text. It's going to do all the formats of information with, you know, kind of complete intelligence on them. So then you're sitting around, you're like, well, what startup should I go build? You probably don't want to do things that instantly could be subsumed by a horizontal chat interface. And you probably don't want to do things in the model area that you might just be one training run away on their end of being subsumed by just a more superior model. So that means, I mean, this is sort of like, to me, it's the most exciting part of software. To 80% of people, it sounds like the most boring part of software, but it's like, you have to do like the workflows that eventually a human who wants to go and run a full business process has to implement, that doesn't want to just do back and forth chatting with a thing. So like, even to your tutor point, or the language learning, I don't think ChatGPT itself is going to become a language tutor. I think it'll have the full capability to be a language tutor at the model level. And could you prompt it to being a language tutor? Seems plausible, but like hard to imagine it follows a multi-year journey with you, exactly in the way that Duolingo would maybe do. But what should Duolingo do is probably as quickly as possible adopt whatever OpenAI is building from a model standpoint and make sure that they are incorporating that into their product. Because what I do tend to see happen way too often is that incumbents will hold on to their own technology way longer than they should, because there's some perceived kind of, I have to own something that in practice, the moment that whatever you thought you had to own is inferior to what the rest of the market has access to, you need to drop the inferior thing as quickly as possible and adopt whatever is superior, even if it means, potentially supporting what you think, emotionally is sort of your long-term competitor.
What do you think the street's response to that would be if some of the largest public companies today dropped the inferiority problem and said, fuck it, we're going to adopt OpenAI's instead because their models are better? I
mean, this is actually, there's like multiple answers embedded into this. I think some of this actually is more of just like the market sort of lack of understanding. If anything, what I'm about to say is probably people would like it if Duolingo announced tomorrow that GPT-4o is powering their, translation engine. That would actually be a positive, because it would just be like, oh, this is this very powerful AI that now your user base has access to. And we understand that like you're selling a different sort of flavor value proposition than what OpenAI horizontally is going to sell. So we think that could be, better for your business. But I have no idea. I mean, this is like, it's impossible to give Duolingo advice on this podcast. But all I would say is I've seen some people bury their head in the sand being like, no, my custom trained model is so good at this one thing, and we don't want to give OpenAI, this particular data, or we're going to compete over time with them. It's like you can wish all of that to be true, but if what they have is better for the product that you're trying to deliver to customers, that is the only way that you're going to survive this. So that's I think what a lot of incumbents tend to run into, which is the classic innovator's dilemma challenge that you see.
You've spoken before about kind of the need for just unwavering commitment and speed and working harder than ever because there's a short period of time where winners will be made. That's kind of easy if you're a startup and there's 3 people in, the proverbial garage.
Yeah.
It's quite hard when you're a large company like Box and it's like, oh, no, hundreds of people, thousands of people. Like, this is the time again, like back to work, like proper work, not 9 to 5. It's how do you galvanize a team to know this is a sprint, go?
The tweet I sent was not for anybody else other than Box employees. So for us, we're 2,700 or so employees. We're still enough, though, that we can literally get on a Zoom call. Our all hands is like everybody in the company on one call. And then we talk through the strategy, what we have to do. I think we're in a moment where anybody reading the news in tech understands, the kind of period that we're in. I don't necessarily know that everybody understands what's on the line about if your company doesn't make it to the other end of this bridge, before everything kind of breaks off, then you're out of business in this new world. So that's probably the only alarm that needs to be kind of set.
What's the biggest thing that you've lost with scale? Some people lose speed, some people lose creativity, some people lose innovation. If you were to say, no, we probably lost that. What was something that you lost at scale that you most want to get back?
There is a premium when you're a bigger company, which is when you make a decision, it needs to be a well thought out decision that you're just going to press a button and we're going to go execute. And you're going to iterate and you're going to learn lots of things. But because of the work it takes to drive that alignment. But it means when you do that, like you don't want to follow up a week or 2 weeks later, being like, just kidding. Like we got to do this thing. And so, maybe this is the only, in the 30 seconds I had to think about your question, when you're a 20-person company, you just get in a room and you're like, okay, here's what I think we should do. It looks like this. It should be priced like this. Let's go build it. Let's test it or whatever. And then like the whole company is sort of like fully lined up to go do that thing. You find out that it sucks and you just like quickly pivot. And like everybody was on the same page that no, this was just clearly a hypothesis. We don't really know for a fact what's going to happen. We can just pivot through this. In a big company, you're like that team still exists. But the problem is you have everybody else watching that team saying, please tell us when like the thing is exactly the thing. And we're going to go off and kind of race. And so you have to kind of find exactly the right moment where you're ready to now expose the working thing to everybody else. If it's too late, then everybody's going to be like, well, bozos, what were you doing? And if it's too early, then you're going to have thousands of people kind of go through the sort of like, oh, that didn't work, or like, hey, that didn't land. And finding that balance is kind of an interesting thing for anybody on the more product development sort of side of these kind of companies. I think of Gemini actually as the first round of Gemini, all the kind of, massive mistakes that it made is probably some version of this manifestation, which is like, if it was a 20-person startup, they would have put it out there. Everybody would have known, okay, this kind of sucks at these things. Let's go improve it. But at a company the scale of Google, like there's some team working on it. They kind of throw it over the fence, and then everybody's like, "Oh my God, what is this thing?" And it's just like it's just because you had a separation of the people working on the whole thing from then the ultimate people that needed to flag the alarm, and by then it was too late, and just chaos.
Do you think Google smashed it last week?
I do. Yeah, but last week even to me could be kind of like condensed as just like another week of awesome AI updates. I'm not sure that I can sort of pull out like this is the one thing that will set off a new trajectory of AI. There were agents, there were better models, there was multimodal, like all great stuff. But the thing that I think it underscores, that I think honestly Cloud Next did as well, is like, Sundar has set a message to the company that AI is the number one most important priority of all things. It's like 10 times higher than every other level of everything else you're working on. It's going to be like the new way to search. It's going to be the new products in cloud. It's going to, it's going to be in workspace. And I think that message it was very important. It is now very clearly, like, the evidence of it working is now showing up. And I think, Google I/O is merely the another moment of it manifesting that company has religion now on AI.
Would you be a buyer or a seller of Google?
I don't buy or sell anything. So, I'm generally long Google in an AI era.
Okay. Are you worried about AI regulation? I sit in Europe. We favor a very regulated environment. We've made our business kind of constraining our residents and then taxing the shit out of anyone who wants access to them. And that's been called a business model in this continent, as you know.
It's cool that they haven't kicked you out for your views on this.
I mean, also just for, it's 10:30 here and I'm working. So, I mean, it's like, I literally had a reference call before this and they were like, dude, are you European? I'm like, yeah, I know. I'm weird. So are you nervous about regulation preventing progression in AI?
I'm increasingly less nervous only because of what we've actually seen these bills sort of come up with. They don't seem as they don't seem as sort of progress halting as maybe what would have been rumored about a year ago. The scariest moment to me was the pause AI kind of moment, which was okay. We need to stop the development of advanced AI for 6 months until we kind of figure something out. And it was like, it's been, let's say, a decade of us all as a community talking about AI. If you think that in an extra 6 months is all it takes for us to have some kind of alignment on like what is the doomsday AI going to look like? What is sort of dangerous AI? What is less dangerous AI? 6 months is not going to solve this. There are very fundamentally different philosophies in the land of AI that are irreconcilable. They will never fit together. It's okay. It's great to have actually a dynamic set of perspectives. They will not be able to ever be fully unified. And so I thought that was going to really kind of, gum up the advancements if, government started looking at pause AI and they're like, oh, even the tech community wants us to stop this thing. And that was what I was kind of most nervous about in that period. Since then, if I look at what actually has kind of, what has legs, where progress has been made, I think it's often more surgical AI regs. So, okay, we have to deal with copyrights and data training. We have to deal with IP protection. I think those are important conversations, actually. I think that our IP law did not anticipate a world of AI in the way that we have today. And I think it's a good conversation that would, is important to solve. There's another conversation of just like, what is the national security, sort of, issues with just, super intelligent AI at some point in the future. How do we want to make sure to protect against that and regulate that? It's not an area that I'm as sort of kind of focused on or as believe in, but some people that I deeply respect fully believe in it. And I sort of like that this is an open conversation that we should be advancing.
The show's been successful because I specialize in dumb questions. From the way that you described agents, it was like the next generation of RPA. What happens to prior RPA providers? Does UiPath just adopt an agent-based model and actually move away from kind of rote learning? Or what happens?
Yeah, I mean, actually, I think being an incumbent RPA vendor is actually a great spot because if you already are talking to customers about literally automating business processes and workflows, and there's just a better way to do that, and there's nothing in conflict with their business model. In fact, if anything, actually, they probably were the first to have more of a consumption-oriented, kind of model for automation. So I think you could be very bullish on RPA vendors right now. But I do think it means that more players kind of get in and around the space. So I think the thing that will 100% guaranteed happen, like in 5 years from now, this will be the most obvious thing of all time. But when you look at like RPA, you had to be a relatively deep expert in RPA. you had to be like a mid-size or large enterprise or kind of developer-oriented, kind of individual. And so the total size of the market was basically arbitrarily or artificially held back by just the complexity of the legacy approach. So if AI makes it 10 times cheaper, faster, and easier to automate workflows, then it stands to reason that the market will be substantially larger. It could be 100 times larger at the end of this whole journey. So what will happen is the market will get much larger. Traditional RPA vendors, if they execute, should take a good portion of that market. And then there's going to be a new set of entrants that will bring automation and intelligence to their platforms that take out parts of the new market that emerges. That's obviously what we're focused on, which is, hey, what about all the parts of the business that you never automated before? If you go to most companies and you say, show me where your digital assets are, all your marketing materials, they're going to be like, okay, it's in all these folders, inside of my hard drive. And well, what if you could just like go in and ask a question of like, show me all of the, red dresses, and just like instantly came up. Well, that is what you'll now be able to do with AI. What if you go to your contract repository and instead of it being just a bunch of folders with contracts in them, you just say, hey, what contracts are up for renewal next month with this particular clause in it? And instantly you now know, what areas of risk does your business have? So these are things that you just could not have done before that AI now lets us do on top of all of our data.
Do you think there's a hard enterprise consumer behavior shift that they have to go through in order to fundamentally change how they work?
Yeah, so this is probably the long pole of all of AI right now is not going to be the technical breakthroughs. It's going to be the implementation and change management on the human side.
So I actually tweeted that AI services companies are going to make more revenue than any foundation model providers. And then Accenture posted 2.4 billion in revenue and OpenAI posted 2 billion in revenue. So absolutely right. How do you think about that? Do you agree with me?
Services are almost the leading indicator to compute because you need services to implement the thing that then eventually is sort of on autopilot, not fully, but more or less. So I think I would take the bet on AI services for the next 5 years, unquestionably. The amount of dollars that will go into the change management of systems, the implementation of the technology is going to continue to be massive. On the other hand, the other thing that goes along with that, though, is a bunch of the AI stack. So the actual GPUs, the data center build out, that as well. So I think at some point, though, the curve, if AI is as meaningful as I believe it is, and I think so much of tech believes it is, at some point, the actual AI, sort of the software services of AI, the infrastructure services of AI will eventually exceed the human services on the implementation, simply because now once it's in production, you don't need that same change management 10 years later. Like, it's just literally running. Like, the amount of money we spend today on our cloud infrastructure vastly exceeds the amount of money we spend maintaining our cloud infrastructure versus 5 years ago when we were first moving more into the cloud, our services were higher than our infrastructure spend.
Mm-hmm. No, I get you totally. Is there anything that you think we don't spend enough time talking about, or there's not enough light shone on in the AI discussion and that we haven't discussed today?
To me, there's just interesting downstream kind of consequences if everything plays out as it should on paper. So I'm fascinated by the idea of what SaaS did was it made it so I have a friend who he sells balloons online. And it's actually not a bad business. It's it makes real money. And he sells balloons online. And I don't think he would have started the business if Shopify didn't exist. I think the existence of Shopify made it so he could be like, oh, well, I have this random idea. Let's just see if it works. It lowered the barrier to then going out and basically starting a business. And I know that Toby has, thousands or tens of thousands of these types of stories. So, if you think about it, if Shopify caused businesses to get started because it lowered the barrier to being able to sell online, if AWS caused applications to get started because I was like, oh, I could just build an app and run it in the cloud. I don't have to think about servers anymore. If Stripe, caused businesses to get started because I don't think about payments anymore, then in a land of AI agents, you can almost similarly be like, well, somebody literally one day could just be like, well, maybe I should start this idea because I've lowered the barrier to, again, getting customers or supporting customers or, testing the software. Like I now have AI labor that can let me now scale my startup idea or whatever. And I think there's an interesting sort of global democratization that could happen where you could be a company based in a place that like did not have this type of talent for a business being started. I don't know which country I should pick on and as a made up, kind of country as this problem. But like if you're 2 or 3 people and name your random country, like does that country have like the SDR sort of infrastructure that got built out in, sort of parts of Europe or the US, like because of the SaaS boom? Probably not. But like now I go and I can just like literally like hire an outbound sales rep, with AI. So think about what is that going to mean in terms of where companies get created, how much you can scale up. I think we'll just see a boom in all new ideas begin to emerge.
The one thing I really worry about, and it's slightly on a tangent, but like when you have anything kind of generative AI, essentially supply just becomes unlimited. It could be that outbound sales rep and they can send 1 million messages a day, or we could have podcast logo cover art or podcasts themselves. People don't know this, but for our intros, it's not my voice, Aaron. Like not at all. Like just and because we have thousands and thousands of hours of my voice. And so my point being though, is like value appreciation going to go to zero when suddenly, you get 1,000 emails a day from outbound sales reps that are all AI?
This one can't solve. I think you will always see this a standard kind of power log dynamic. I think if we were having this conversation, imagine having this conversation 20 years ago exactly, and being like, wait a second, if the iPhone lets you have any software and Amazon lets you build any software, aren't we just going to see like tens of millions of apps? How will anybody even, know what to find or discover? And it's like, I don't know, the world magically just kind of figures out this stuff. Like the things that don't work die off, that, people don't pay for the outbound emails anymore. The things that do work take off. It's creative destruction is an incredible thing that's alive and well in the world.
Final one. We've talked about regulation, we've talked about model quality. You've tweeted before about kind of the job displacement concern. If there was one thing that did worry you, what would that be?
I think we have ways of defending against this, but like, you can, it doesn't take like that much imagination to be like, one of those like robot dogs with like a gun and like, and a multimodal AI, like, wow, wouldn't want that thing running around. So I think there are real reasons we should, sort of pay attention to some of the more, dangerous use cases of AI. I just think we have, in many cases, sufficient legal frameworks for addressing those things. And then for any net new one that we come up with, let's actually, have regulation to go and support that. But what I'm less worried about at the moment is probably the more fringe extreme things of the AI sort of self-replicates. It sort of, jumps over outside the data center to another data center and then self-propagates. And I'm less nervous that is sort of on the docket of events.
So I want to do a quick fire with you. I've loved this. I say a statement, you give me your immediate thoughts. Does that sound okay?
We'll see.
Which stage of the business did you suck in as a leader most, and what did you learn?
Definitely delegation. I like to get my hands dirty with all aspects of the business, and so it was very hard to kind of let go of parts of it to other leaders.
Can you not micromanage at scale? Jensen Huang has told us with 60 direct reports. Who fucking needs to delegate?
I cannot wait until we're a $2 trillion company, and I will be able to go back into that mode. I'm in a brief period where I have to delegate to keep people happy, but eventually we'll be back to that land. I think the real lesson is you choose the areas that you need to exert that level of involvement. So in places like let's say critical areas like AI or end user experience and some product strategy, I still kind of revert back to early startup self, but there are many areas where just honestly, either because of the amount of hours that the job takes, or just the fact that like you want to be able to bring on great people that are motivated to go execute. delegation is actually extremely important.
I totally agree. Why do you think Zuck's crushed it so much?
In life or in AI?
I mean, in AI specifically.
Okay. I think my read on this is you have, one of the best entrepreneurs of our time that has basically all of the right underlying resources for AI. So lots of compute, incredible engineers, billions of users, i.e. lots of data. He is extremely motivated to have a platform that the internet, builds on and participates in. And I think AI is sort of his moment to really kind of reestablish the dominance that I think we remember Facebook having in the maybe late 2000s, which was like we were all going to build on the social fabric of the web. Some of that happened, some didn't exactly happen as planned. And I think AI is now this moment when actually he can provide a real alternative to more of the relatively closed approaches to AI. And he's sort of set up extremely well to be that kind of counterbalance in this space right now. So I just think it's like all of the stars aligning for his particular both, probably philosophy and resources.
You have a very strong personal brand now. I always use you as actually like a very powerful example of how great personal brands can be and why more founders should build them. What do you think that most people don't know about you because of your personal brand that you would like them to?
I'm totally fine with people not knowing anything additional about me. I just really like enterprise software, and that's how people should think about me.
I love that. You can add anyone to your board. Obviously, you don't have them already. Who would you add and why them?
We had Jensen speak at Box, our kind of conference. BoxWorks must have been 6 years ago. Gen AI was not a thing, but AI was a thing. So we wanted to talk about kind of the future of where things were going. So anyway, I'd say Jensen having access to basically the start of the supply chain of AI is such an important perspective on where things are going. If you could just look at his invoices, to and from TSMC, if we could just see that data, you would kind of know what to go build next. His window into 5 or 10 years out in tech is unparalleled right now.
Why are you bullish on Apple? I'm
bullish on Apple for a variety of reasons, just institutionally how the company operates. But I think there's some meme probably of like, why is Apple not fully in AI yet? And actually, if you look at the most immediate threat that AI poses for companies, I don't think Apple is immediately threatened by AI. It literally, most of my AI usage is on an Apple product that I have often paid money to Apple to be able to use. So just like on the most immediate basis, all of my usage of AI is not threatening to anything that Apple does, and is purely contributing even more to their sort of their platform dominance. But now let's go on the offensive side. So that's sort of on the defensive side. Like you have to first assess, does this new technology hurt a business that I'm in? And I think the answer is largely no for Apple, because they're not selling something that AI is sort of directly threatening. Then you flip to the offensive side, which is, does AI help the business that Apple is in? And I think it's unquestionable that if you could turn this thing into basically a command center for I just say something to AI and it does a thing in the world, gets me an answer to a search query, hey, what's a good, way to make dinner tonight, whatever you do on the personal side, instantly they'll just do that. And then if it really turns into a thing of like, hey, book me this flight or call this Uber for me or whatever, that's just an infinite amount of new types of transactions that they can facilitate that they are not currently monetizing in any kind of meaningful way. Now, who knows how they actually monetize those things, but I think it turns your phone basically into your task, automation engine, and this intelligent, sort of device. And so if you have 1 billion plus people that are using this device for now a new set of things that they never used it before, and it's all through your interfaces, your APIs, or your software, I think that puts them in a very powerful position. So then the only question is like, oh, well, so why is it taking kind of quote unquote so long? I would actually argue that any of the kind of quote unquote either delays or slowdown doesn't amount to anything. The AI that I was using a year ago is totally different than the AI I'm using today. This space is changing so rapidly that it is way better for Apple to enter the moment when they, believe that they've built the right user experience, when the technology is sort of stable, and when it's high enough quality. We will all use with the thing that they launch whenever that point is.
Or they just partner with OpenAI, as they're supposedly supposed to be doing.
But that's my thing. Is like, that's not even an or. Why is that an or? Like, what does it matter to you? What is the underlying engine in Siri? Like, I don't care. I want to be able to click my phone, ask a question, get something done. So I don't even see that as an or. I see that as just a natural sort of technology partner supply chain thing. And who even knows what they're even doing, because it's all rumors. But I don't see that as any weakness on Apple's front. I see that as a consumer, I just want the best AI to be on my device.
What did you not do with Box that you wish you'd done? Everyone has to prioritize. Everyone has strategic decisions on, we focus here. What decision did you decide not to do that you wish you had done?
Earlier in our journey, I would have focused more on cash flow. I have become a little bit of a religious around cash flow. I think owning your own destiny as a company is important. I think caring about and inspecting every single dollar of spend in the business is very important. I think these things, in sort of very loose capital environments, it sort of gets forgotten about, or people don't really care about it. But actually, I think it helps you build a better business, because you kind of apply constraints that force better decisions, better strategy, better execution. So I would have done that, years earlier than when we ultimately focus on cash flow.
You've been married now for a few years. What's the secret to success as like a fucking on it public market CEO and a happy marriage? Pretty tough to do.
It helps that my wife is equally busy, so I don't get yelled at as much as probably as possible for my own busyness. But I mean, you just probably all the standard things. You carve out the date nights. You have weekends for family time, and then you just ask for forgiveness a lot. So
I love that. Final one. If I said to you, it's 2029. Shit. Where would you be thrilled for Box to be then?
There's sort of like metrics, like, could be, we just passed $1 billion in revenue. We'd like to get to $2 billion as quickly as possible. So that's an important milestone for us.
Can I be blunt? Well, I'm so sorry for being so rude. Yeah. You passed $1 billion in revenue. Yeah. Your market cap is 3.89. I'm depressed.
No, don't be too depressed.
No, but I was taught like at least like 8x.
Yeah.
I'm an investor.
Well, this is sort of why I am the lesson for everybody's future is eventually, at some future point, you will be measured on a set of metrics that are much more boring than ARR multiples, and they will be free cash flow multiples or whatnot. So, we are at the later stage of that journey now. 4x is clearly way too undervalued. You should be in the kind of 6 or 8x range. We had a period, probably the last couple of years, where the kind of core business slowed down, and we've been sort of launching a sort of second act, as it were, or third act within both AI, workflow automation, more business process. That takes time to get to scale, before obviously the top line growth can slow down. So we're kind of in the midst of that transition right now, but these are the things you deal with as a public company.
So where would you be 5 years then?
So our next set of goals: get to $2 billion as quickly as possible. Market cap, kind of whatever is associated with that. But I think I don't have a specific thing as much as kind of back to what we were talking about earlier on AI. If you think about the information that goes into your content, your contracts, your marketing assets, your financial records, your invoices. This is basically, the closest thing that a company has to its digital memory, let's just say. And AI now has the ability to actually tap into your digital memory as a company. So the thing that over the next couple of years, and so let's say 5 as an arbitrary point, is really enabling just the world to reimagine what they can do with their data. And what if every company had, infinite digital memory to make better decisions, to automate more processes, to, think about the new employee that has to be onboarded, that doesn't know anything about what the hell, the organization's doing. Instantly, that's now what they can tap into. So we think it's just a profound moment for how you work with your information in the cloud.
Listen, Aaron, thank you so much for putting up with me pressing in many different areas, which was also like there was no schedule sent ahead of time. This like arranged on Twitter without the usual process.
No, sure. Who wants process? So we're
exactly. Good. But thank you so much.
Thank you.